one, these two teams have been winning matches. Tempo wins a match, then HeroesHearth wins theirs, and HeroesHearth wins the next one, then Tempo Storm fires back at another one, but no more! This is it. They finally go up against each other, and we will have a top team in North America.
One winner means that there's one loser in every match, and for HeroesHearth, they took the most recent one in part 2 of phase 1. Can they exert their dominance again here is the big question, because Tempo Storm, despite the change, they still are the dominant force we know them to be. Gilly, yesterday, I was talking to you, I said, if there is one team that could potentially 3-0 in this series, I said Tempo Storm.
And I said HeroesHearth. So let's find out. Both these teams are 5-0 in standings. They have not lost to a single other team, though both have shown moments of weakness. A lot of it happening in the early game and having to come back. For Tempo Storm, it happened versus LFM. For HeroesHearth Esports, we saw it just yesterday versus Endemic. But as HeroesHearth and Crowan said, if we're not 3 levels behind, we're not winning. They did lose one game to Endemic, but both teams standing strong. Only one gets the top spot, and only one gets to be the #1 seed going forward. Both teams do still have one match left after this one. It'll be next weekend. But since they've all been beating every other team, this is very likely the match that determines who does get #1 seed at the Western Clash.
I think that's very important.
From NA.
And the other side of the coin is beyond Western Clash, because despite HeroesHearth running the table after the first Western Clash, it was not enough to close the gap against Tempo Storm. And you know that automatic qualifier is a heck of a lot easier than the playoffs that HeroesHearth had to go through. That best-of-5 versus Octalis is one of those more memorable series that we've had here, especially in league play in the playoffs. So you know they'd rather take that #1. So long-term, their short-term is definitely here and going into the Western Clash just a few weeks away.
Well, statistically, this is a much different match between the two teams, and we can take a look at some of the statistics. Before, Tempo Storm was a far more lethal team than HeroesHearth heading into the mid-season brawl. Now HeroesHearth is averaging about more than 1 kill per game, more than Tempo throughout phase 2. Tempo's kill-death ratio is even with Team Freedom, and then HeroesHearth is quite a lot more, about half kill more on average. And then looking beyond that, internationally, it's still a far cry from teams like Gen G and Team Dignitas, but HeroesHearth is at the top there, but still it is as close as you can get, Jay-How.
Yeah, the thing that we get, as far as the advanced statistics, it goes beyond the KD, the KDA that we oftentimes bring up, the total damage per minute. This is a stat that when you look at the numbers, 23.6, 22.2, those are numbers shared by other top teams. Yes, the kills always look good. Yes, the KDA is a cool stat to lean back on, but that damage per minute means that you are doing a lot of work, not just in the kill department, but on the overall map control department. And that's where these teams really start to shine. And for these two teams, that stat right there speaks volumes to me, because that is on par with the tops of other regions.
It's not only on par for HeroesHearth, that is the only area where they are beating Team Dignitas, is total damage per minute, an average hero damage per minute. The thing is, though, Team Dignitas is right behind HeroesHearth, and Team Dignitas dies far less than HeroesHearth does. That is a lot of where Team Dignitas, it's hard to say for me today for some reason, is able to top all of the stats when you look at all of the ratios together, because they just so rarely die.
I think the crazy thing is that Tempo Storm has been at the top for so long of all these, that when we were getting our stats this week and preparing them, and I see a #2 beside Tempo's name when I'm ordering, I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right here. There's a typo. Maybe I did something wrong. But HeroesHearth, #1 across the board in all of our major statistical categories here in North America. So a changing of the guard, statistically for now, Tempo Storm ramping up, might change a lot of things here in our series today.
Well, this series has some of the biggest resumes from professional North American Heroes of the Storm players, and 2 of those players are going to be found on opposite sides of the battlefield. Those are Arthalon and Fan. Let's hear from these players about this important series.
Going into this weekend, we're not really sure how strong Tempo is. I personally I think they're still a little bit below of when they had Psalm. Oh man, versus Tempo, it's just going to be a spicy one. I mean, I'm excited to play it just because we're playing our best opponents on a brand new patch. I mean, there's nothing more fun, really. So I'm just looking forward to it, and I hope it's the best of 5, no matter what. Just like last time, we'll go into Tempo very prepared and very ready to play, no matter what spiciness could arrive because of the 3rd ban.
I think it would mean a lot to us if we were able to beat HeroesHearth, even with the changes. You know, Psalm was obviously a really good player, but you know, to us it would mean proving that just because we lost Psalm, we're not this fragile bottom tier team that everyone seemed to think we would be at the start of this season. We still have, you know, 4 world-class players, and Vin, who's going to be joining us, is also very good mechanically, and he's eager to learn. So yeah, I think proving that we're still a very strong team is important, and also yeah, just being able to beat HeroesHearth after they 0-3'd us would be pretty important to us as well for our confidence.
Whereas HeroesHearth for a long time has been a fan favorite, it does feel kind of like Tempo Storm has had to endure other teams. Whether it's hopeful that maybe Tempo is not as strong as they actually are, but also, you know, fans just looking to see, is Tempo Storm the same? They're not the same. They can't be the same. And Vin coming in, now Vin being official on the roster, is a place for Tempo Storm to show a lot of growth together, but they're going to come right up against a wall as they play versus HeroesHearth Esports.
Depending on how this goes, and I'd say that either way it's still positive, but Vin coming in, yes, the circumstances weren't ideal for the way that they had to pick this up, but this might actually be a blessing in disguise. If he fits in mechanically, and he has, and he's been very strong up until this point, and if he continues that growth, for Tempo Storm, as Fan said, he has 4 world-class players on that team. It's basically like, instead of bringing an established player in to fit in a role, they're able to basically take clay and mold it into something that could be much better and much stronger. And Vin, as long as he's eager to learn and can continue to apply those mechanics, this very well might just be a blessing in disguise for them. The circumstances haven't been ideal. They've done well with him so far. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Vin holds up in the pressure of such a massively monumental series for them. And then you don't want to have the guard changing. And right now, HeroesHearth slightly at the top. This is for all the marbles here in part 1.
Well, he's already endured a Tempo Storm reverse sweep, so anything's possible for Vin. Vin will be playing against Crowan, talking about playing against one of the top guards, the top dogs in North America. And here you can see Vin dies slightly less, just a little bit less than Crowan, but Crowan, he gets the kills in. And as we see when we talk about players like Reset, those Korean players that are lethal, getting the kills often means so much more and is more than enough to offset having more deaths.
He's been a big contributing factor, and it's something that the kills are slightly lower, but it's just due to tempo. They figured out their drafts right around week 3, started to come in a little bit stronger, more decisive with their drafts, more decisive with their calls, and they've looked nothing but improved since then. And I think Vin is filling that role, and as long as his continues to grow, that ceiling is sky high for not just him, but for that team to continue to reign at the top. We did see them in phase 2 of last year, dip as Team Freedom had their rise going into BlizzCon, but Tempo Storm never relinquished that crown officially as they made it to those international events and continued to scale higher and higher, as we saw just recently in Mid-Season Brawl.
Well, Cronin Vin's Hanzo will be one highly contested pick in the draft, maybe as far as Game 1, because we're going to Towers of Doom to kick up this battle between the 2 top teams in North America. The bans will be Battlefield of Eternity, Tempo Storm going back to that ban, and then Infernal Shrines, HeroesHearth sticking with that one.
Towers of Doom is not normally where we start series, it's normally where we end series, but we're going to kick things off with a bang here on this battleground, so we'll see the test here. Obviously, HeroesHearth and Tempo Storm excel at this battleground, so the drafts in particular are going to be fun to watch. This is Tempo Storm's first go at triple ban this weekend. HeroesHearth already showed themselves yesterday. It's going to be a fun one. I'm excited to see what we get. I can't imagine Hanzo makes it through either of these drafts unless it's a first pick for some team.
Task Tracer, something to consider for the teams too, especially Crowan and Arthalon, that back line of HeroesHearth Esports. I'm very excited to see how Tempo Storm adjusts to the triple ban. It may even be that HeroesHearth has somewhat of an advantage, a small one, because they had the trial by fire versus Endemic in our first series yesterday, but Tempo Storm sticking to what they know, sticking to what has worked for them on Towers of Doom, and that's that Abathur ban and control over globals.
And speaking of globals, Dahaka is banned out, which means that one of our deadly assassins is going to make it through. Genji, Tracer, Raynor
Hanzo
seem to be at the top. Blaze is going to make it through. Hanzo, instead of the traditional assassin bans that we've seen throughout some of our earlier series, this is a focus on the solo. It's a focus on the global. Now, does Yrel rise in priority with Blaze and Dahaka already banned off, giving some of those top-tier heroes, assassins, I should say, over to HeroesHearth?
I'm not sure the Tempo will be willing to sacrifice some of those big picks if they're up, especially for something like Vin's Hanzo or Vin's Genji. Now, the Genji's gone. And Yrel will be the first pick with that leaving the battlefield.
Jimmy's through. Is Jimmy high enough priority for these teams? Towers of Doom, a little bit different operational than some of our other battlegrounds where I think Jimmy might have more value, but make no mistake about it, in those team fights, it is strong. And this is a rotation we have yet to see. Phoenix and Raynor right out of the gate. Does Tempo Storm go into the Johanna for the blinds against double auto attack assassins? Do we see Murden, which has been very high priority for Caterpillar up until this point?
Malfurion and Murden, they are doubling down on getting everything that HeroesHearth Esports does not have. They have a solo lane, and they could possibly ban another solo laner in their ban, but it does leave them damage light and something that HeroesHearth might be able to expound on more with this next ban, but nothing really past that. Of course, HeroesHearth still need to be able to get their support, their warriors, so what they have is what they're going to get. There's likely only going to be one further takeaway here. Tempo Storm feeling that their backline has been very flexible between Vin and Fan, especially because they're trying to figure out who's going to be playing what, so I don't think Tempo Storm is too concerned about the amount of assassins taken away.
Thrall ban has been high priority at times for McIntyre. We've got to start looking at other options. Blaze, Thrall, targeted there. Yrel already taken off the board. Dahaka was removed by HeroesHearth. So for McIntyre, we got to look much deeper down that hero pool. We'll wait to find out what that is as Alex Straza and Diablo picked up here for HeroesHearth.
What we saw in the last series was Alex Straza have such an effect on team fights. Should she have that same kind of effect over this game, no doubt she'll probably start rising in priority, maybe even to a ban position. But for now, these teams are willing to let her through. HeroesHearth does pick her up, though, even over something like a Deckard Cain. Next two picks be the damage of Tempo Storm.
Ooh.
They get Valeera and Hanzo.
All right, solo lane now. What you got? Because if it's we've seen Malthael. That's been the only other hero that we haven't seen banned or picked on the side of HeroesHearth. Malthael would be there, but Malthael a little bit squishier. Sonya can be interrupted during that whirlwind now with Valeera there. So McIntyre, what you got for us?
ETC.
Well, that gives you something a little bit tankier.
Get some armor when you use abilities. Stage life later on gives you a global, since globals were the focus for a lot of the bans. But Yrel has Divine Steed, so she can try to show up for rotations. And Tempo Storm's a world-class team. They're going to know when they need to bring their Yrel down. That Valeera, this is something that Mene, I believe, played earlier today for Fnatic.
Seen a little bit of mix-in. It was the first time I think we've seen Valeera without the Abathur. I don't think it fared well earlier, actually. It was an interesting setup, but we're going to see it again here. Hanzo does bring enough damage from that range department, who surprisingly made it all the way to the very end of the draft for Tempo Storm. So Valeera, the ultimate X-Factor hero, because when Valeera hits you, you are basically crying just to be saved. It is a terrible feeling. Lifebinder can't go off if you're silenced for 2.5 seconds. Valeera is one of those heroes that can do that. You get the dive in, Murden going on to that. ETC and Diablo got their work cut out for him to protect that backline.
If you would have told me a Valeera for Tempo Storm, I would have said Psalm all day. Who plays it now? Is this going to be Fan? Will it be Vin? Or is there something else afoot? Let's get this series going with HeroesHearth in blue.
Gilly, it is excitement abound. BBJ will be here, of course, supporting on that Alex Straza. Ishbu on the front line on Diablo. Of course, Arthalon on that Rainer. McIntyre on ETC. And Kron, he'll be bringing the pain on the Phoenix.
In the red, looking to defend their title of the top of North America is Tempo Storm. Glaurung will be playing Urel. Caterpillar on the front lines, leading the charge on that Muradin. Then we'll be playing Hanzo. Fan will be playing Valera, which of course leaves the support players last but not least. June playing Malfurion.
Natural synergy between Phoenix and Rainer with that ace in the hole at level 1. That plasma cutter getting the slow. It's one way to make sure that you can get some value out of that level 1 talent. We'll see how much pain Arthalon brings. Glaurung comes in for a little bit of damage. Roots come in as well. I think we're going to see things neutral, but all eyes will be on the rotations. A fan on Valera. That will be a sight to see, so much so that HeroesHearth decided to take a detour to start the game as they took a very long route to that bot lane.
Doesn't get safer than in your kill zone, J-Hal.
It's the only place.
Straight through the kill zone to put Arthalon and BBJ in the bottom. That Flame Buffet showing that Fan is lurking in the shadows. Not so much now since BBJ was able to get the reveal there. Thankfully for this duo, Arthalon has his penetrating round to try to force back Valera should she come in on top of the Alex Straza, and then Alex has the heals for Rainer. We're going to see both teams set up for a very early Sapper camp, picking them up. HeroesHearth is pretty slow to start this. They get the silence. The target is Ishbu. He's going to be able to charge through, but the roots are still there. Tempo Storm looking for that first blood, but they don't get it.
His positioning was pretty phenomenal there. He pushed out, knowing that he was trying to get the angle to shadow charge back in towards that healing zone. Was it successful in that attempt, making sure to continue to stack, only sitting at 12 stacks on his souls there, which is why he's so squishy. Also, ETC change up in the build, going block party here, making sure that he can minimize some of those auto attacks that will be coming his way. And allies as well.
You know, not only do you have the slows with the great synergy for Rainer, but think about this. You have Lightning Breath to set up either Purification Salvo, but also Ace in the Hole. And Rainer, this is a highly synergistic composition. I am very excited to see how it works out for HeroesHearth, especially since we know Ishbu likes his Diablo.
We also got the slow option on your face melt at 13, so if they come in and try and dive and ETC is able to just press W once, you can get that slow. So there are a lot of save points for HeroesHearth in these team fights to where they can turn them around. It's just a matter of, can you survive the initial onslaught? Because of Valera composition, it is all fire at the beginning of fights, and surviving beyond that initial burst is oftentimes enough to win out. You have Phoenix with shields, you have a self-heal potentially from Rainer if he's able to get that off. See how it plays out as Tempo Storm being very aggressive to start this game.
Yeah, there's recognition right here that Tempo Storm is all about getting the double channel. They steal the safe channel from HeroesHearth, they give the bottom lane. But what this does do is let HeroesHearth push out that bottom lane and try to get some structural damage done. Tempo quick to recognize it, leave June to get the channel so that they can keep Urel forcing out that top lane as much as possible and then rotate in. Didn't lose anything in the bottom, but did get some tower damage done in favor of HeroesHearth.
Cattle's been doing a very good job stacking on his level 1, already at 10 stacks. There's going to be the knockback missed. Arthalon under assault, going to turn, try and fire back against Ben. Cattle, BBJ stepping forward to get the body blocks in. Arthalon gets a heal. Going to keep him alive a moment longer.
That was without the Valera.
Yeah.
That was just Caterpillar being a bully.
Also, Gilly, we got
Strangling
Vines from Malfurion coming out, trying to mitigate some of the heals that will come down on those Alex Straza heal points. So Jun changing up his build. McIntyre and team being focused. Kron's going to return some damage. So far, Tempo Storm has early control. That power slide interrupted. The slow needs to be there, as well as the face melt, because the fan was able to get back into that invisible form, would have had another stun or silence to follow up.
Well, J-Hal, I'm ready to see if with that Strangling Vines, June can make some magic happen with heal reduction, because so far what it's felt like is that it just has not impacted Alexstrasza to the level that teams would like. We've seen Emeralds be used versus her, we have seen Touch of Death be used versus her, and still she has the ability to sustain people through, and I think a lot of that comes in with the lower cooldowns that she gets in Dragon Queen form, the build with this Q build so that she is not as vulnerable as long as she can keep her initial healing up. But Fan might be able to stop that particular point if he goes in and gets the jump on her with that Valera.
Well, this rotation from ETC is going to be a little bit staggered compared to the rest as Cattle continues to stack up. 16 stacks. The stronger he gets late game, the scarier he gets. We've seen Cattle make some pretty impressive backline dives. June going to complete the channel at the bottom, which means... Oh, there's Valera.
And there goes Raynor.
Wow. Glaurung surviving for now. He's going to get dismounted out of that Divine Steed, but Kroan forced to go ahead and warp out. Ishbu with the stun.
This Halter's still up. Getting the kill on Raynor was huge, and a lot of that was the positioning of Fan as Raynor started to go out. Separated from the rest of the team for mere seconds is all it takes, as long as the follow-up is there and you have the kind of damage that Vin has to come along with that Valera, who is so bursty and gets even stronger and stronger as she continues to level up.
For the pacing of this game, HeroesHearth, they are a later game team. Diablo getting souls. Phoenix getting that purification salvo to really try and combat this. Alexstrasza, we haven't seen much in the form of Dragon Queen. Obviously, Lifebinder, we expect here. ETC's stage dive come in, and then the fire breath that you talked about that will come out, give the slows, and really try and control an area. As the lightning breath, we're going to see what that can handle.
That is as normal for HeroesHearth as it gets, and despite losing that one kill, despite losing a couple of the altars, doesn't feel like there's too much fear. But as long as Tempo Storm can keep the staggered deaths going, then they may be able to keep fear in HeroesHearth that it wouldn't be otherwise. HeroesHearth still bringing in the damage, despite Tempo Storm getting heroic abilities, but what they might have hoped to do is force an Ardent Defender. Didn't happen. Glaurung staying patient with that, knowing he had the heals and the safety of the team to get out.
Due to the amount of auto attacks, we are going to get Smoke Bomb. Makes you untargetable. But the laser of Kroan, if he has that moment in the pack, you put that laser down to just circle around you in a tight area, might be enough to take that down. Stage dive, of course, was picked up. Not getting the Hyperion in this game, the Raider. See if they can get that single target focus in as Ishbu still holding point. Cattle just now finished the baseline quest, still 22 on his level 1 quest.
Well, what perfect way to get game 1 going than as soon as both teams getting 10, a solo altar phase. ETC's in the mid, clearing that out, about to come down. Glaurung wants to start the channel. Have a couple of different ways to stall that, and we'll see these solo laners continue to trade blows around this altar.
Look for the big setup. Ishbu on the front, taking a bit of damage. Still got a lot from BBJ to potentially come out here. Dragon Queen and Lifebinder.
All eyes on
Major
Fan.
impact. There we go. There's going to be the charge in, the flip.
Dragon
Roots are
Queen.
down. Dragon Queen is out.
Now can Tempo Storm, will they be willing to stall this out? They're going to use a Sonic Arrow to do once, trying to wait out that Dragon Queen if they can. No one else in too much of a position. Ishbu's going to grab that arrow, which does take damage, or does put damage on him, but importantly, trying to zone away so that they could get the channel. And with the Dragon Queen, HeroesHearth Esports picks up 4 shots going toward Tempo's core.
Now there was a 2-person attempt in the mid lane on the ETC, and now the dive in. There's going to be the charge in. Here comes Fan on the backside to Dragon Arrow, setting it up. Alexstrasza is silenced. We see the Lifebinder trying to heal up, but Phoenix not able to keep him alive. Alex first to fall.
Alex goes down, Ardent Defender, keeping Glaurung healthy in the front lines. He's going to be separated from the team as Ishbu has the charge to dive in. Avenging Wrath started to be charged up, but Yrel falls, making that a 2-for-1 as Malfurion also was killed.
That Raider just tracked Glaurung down. That hammer knocked back Diablo, could not knock back that Raider. Things starting to turn around post level 10 here for HeroesHearth. Got off to that slow start, conceded a few points. Fan, he's going to get charged in, flipped back. He's trying to survive. He's not going to make it. That is another takedown. HeroesHearth picking up the pace here.
HeroesHearth Esports is probably the best team in NA at falling behind slightly in the early game, but knowing exactly when they need to start fighting back. And a lot of the times, most of the times, that happens right at the level 10 mark. They are totally comfortable with being the comeback team. And here, that is just another case of proving that. Tempo Storm, however, for a long time, one of their biggest problems was this mid-game and losing staggered death. And that's something that returned to Tempo Storm when we saw them play versus No Tomorrow earlier this phase. So for them, they need to make sure that they don't lose out on more people while everyone is coming back in. And that might be inevitable because we see that stage dive in the power slide.
The coordinated attack there was insane. Cattle goes down as well as Glaurung. The stage dive was like, wait a minute, is this off mark? Ishbu said no. This is calculated. This is planned. Shadow charged him directly into that. The flip back, the power slide over. I don't think that gets executed any better than what HeroesHearth just did, Gilly.
A lovely synergy example of HeroesHearth in that long-standing roster working out, paying off in droves for this team, as now they have a level advantage over Tempo Storm. Get the bottom lane control, work on getting some sappers, and have just about tied up the core health in the lead that Tempo Storm had acquired in that first phase by getting both of the top altars.
Yeah, despite all the success they've had in the last couple of minutes, clearly Tempo Storm had a great start to this. They're going to go ahead and do the boss, push in the top camp. The sappers that were picked up by HeroesHearth will take a bit to get there. I think they're going to be willing to trade this out for now. Triple altar phase coming up next. Sappers just about here as Tempo Storm makes their way in. One sapper gets through. Damage coming out in return. See if they can get any more across. There goes another one.
Makes it through with the roots. Tempo Storm has Fan go in and get the silence, but the reveal forces that smoke bomb. Crowan's keeping on Fan. The heals there from Malfurion to keep him alive. June keeps him safe. We see the blind to increase the duration of Cheap Shot's blind, which, you know, a lot of times because of the Garrote, having the 2.5 seconds silence is so good that you have to have the change up then of using Cheap Shot out of your Vanish, but then you have a very long blind after the stun is done. So we'll see how the setup is going to be now that Fan has that talent.
HeroesHearth has to be weary. We saw the invade during the first temple phase from Tempo Storm. That altar was at the very bottom. This next altar, more towards the middle. You can see the positioning on the minimap. Diablo Alexstrasza looking to rotate in between either. They found Fan. When you take him out of that stealth mode, unable to land those big abilities between the stun and the blind, that's going to be enough to force Tempo Storm off. And in the entire time in the middle, they use their global of ETC to channel that. So double altars going over for HeroesHearth, one in return, but the damage 10 versus 3 coming out. And now HeroesHearth has established a lead here as they're also getting close to 16.
Yeah, that was without 16. HeroesHearth played that out very well, and a lot of that came down to the reveal of Fan. That's a huge sore point for Tempo Storm that he got revealed there, because ideally that's the point that you're getting in the fight before HeroesHearth gets to that crucial talent tier. Now with 16, HeroesHearth feels very comfortable to push in and get a lot more. They have sappers in bottom. Tempo Storm can only try to trade out. They're working on the top so that they can get the experience out of that keep, try to get to 16 themselves, but this is losing a lot to do so.
As long as Urel and Hanzo are showing top, they know they have the advantage, and they'll rotate out back to the bottom. Of Valeera and Hanzo does not scream sieging capabilities to take down structures to me. And that's one of the downsides of a Hanzo. And then you go Valeera with that X factor. This spot lane might just be permanently controlled outside of a big team fight in favor of Tempo Storm. And HeroesHearth, they're holding on to this. The next altar phase will be those top two. Do we get the trade, especially now that Tempo Storm has made that rotation to take that top, and they're trying to defend middle as well.
Figured we'd see Paint Them Red again for Arthalon's Raynor, but instead having Bounty Hunter gives you some armor, and there is a lot of survivability gained in a lot of the talents that we see at 16 for these teams, but also is going to give you the percent-based damage, which with Murden and Urel, that's a very tanky front line, and any little bit that you can have helps in trying to take them down.
Double altar, this time HeroesHearth with the positioning of their own. They're going to get very aggressive. They still have ETC again with the global on that back side. Will start this off. Experience even here Fan just trying to find his way in. There's going to be one charge in. Ishbu with the flip over, buying a little bit of time.
BBJ is going to start the channel again. Lightning Breath and the stage dive in the front. Glaurung nearly obliterated by the Purification Salvo. Fan clearing the back, trying to stop the channel with the smoke bomb too. BBJ is going to start the channel again with the dragon, channeling out the altar. The pure just zoning of Heroes Hearth is far too good. The scatter arrow wasn't able to stop that, and BBJ gets the channel, but Tempo's going for the fight.
Lifebinder, fans identified. They're turning their targets onto Valera. Valera's going to be the first to fall in this fight. Scatter arrow doing a lot of damage, but Glaurung is going to be the target. Second member down on the side of Tempo Storm. Only 3 core health remains on their side.
Heroes Hearth is doing such a phenomenal job of dealing with the Valera, which it's a pick that we don't know how much has been seen in scrims, but shows them that they are very clearly understanding of who the primary targets are for that Valera and making sure that they're dealing with it at every second with this double warrior that they have up in front, with the peel that ETC adds to the equation, plus the Diablo, and then even things like penetrating round, just keeping eyes on that Valera constantly so Fan cannot get the setup, can't get the miracle kill out of nowhere in the back line to start the fight off for Tempo Storm on the right foot.
The zoning is here. All 3 sappers, if they make it through, it's game over. Cattle holding point for now, but he's going to get blasted.
1,
that
2.
is going to be 1, 2, and
3.
3. As Heroes Hearth got off to a respectably slow start, a concerted effort to start slow, knowing the threat early game. The minute Heroics came online, whoo, that was a different team.
That is Heroes Hearth in a nutshell. Every time we commentate them, it feels like they come in to varying degrees fall behind. Sometimes it's maybe further behind than they would anticipate, but the control never feels out of their hands. It never feels like things are slipping through their fingers like it does versus other teams. Right up until maybe they lose the game, and then eventually they do lose a game, but they always have setups for themselves and moments and opportunities to try to get the game back in their favor.
Tempo Storm came out with a different game plan, the Valera. We've seen it work before. Not without the Abathur, I don't think, yet. Wonder if they go back to a little bit more standard. Obviously, they're putting a lot on Vin's shoulders to carry that damage, but 1 kill, 2 kills is all it took for Heroes Hearth, because the minute they gained that bot lane control, they did not relinquish it. They kept control in every aspect of the game, including capturing that mid-bell tower, while the somewhat weak sieging composition of Urel Hanzo took quite a bit of time to take down the top. So, Tempo Storm, do we have something different this game, or do we get more meta?
Well, we looked at Vin and Crowan earlier. Let's look at the numbers and compare some statistics between 2 other players in this matchup, Fan and Arthalon. Both we talked about quite a bit in the last game. Arthalon bringing in his Raynor, and Fan switching over into the Valera in lieu of Psalm's absence on the team. Arthalon is someone you've been talking about a lot, Jay Howe, and how much he has improved over this phase.
In phase 1, those numbers are mirrored. That is completely opposite. Arthalon was the most diverse hero pool that we saw. He was more of the support role in that backliner, allowing Crowan to do work. But since Arthalon in phase 2, I talked to him earlier this week, and I asked him, what's the change up? What's the difference? What has it been like? This is something we discussed yesterday. But he said his team, it was a very concerted effort, a mindful effort for him to have more of an impact on that backside. The fact that he's averaging 3.0 kills coming into this weekend, Crowan was sitting at 3.2, I believe. They were sitting at number 1 and number 2 in North America, and both of them top 10 in the world in kills per game. And his impact is definitely felt in phase 2 more so than it was in phase 1.
I'm looking at the heroes played and the difference between that, and obviously it's something where Fan and Van were still working out a lot of who was going to be playing what throughout this phase. Even for a time, looking at Vin as the sub too, and not quite sure, you know, where the final roster was going to end up for Tempo. But coming into this weekend, Heroes Hearth had played the least amount of heroes just in general, and then Arthalon also had the first week off since he was on vacation. So quite a difference in hero pools between them, but Arthalon has shown a lot of flexibility in the past.
Always had that flexibility, and that's something you always have to be mindful of when you play against this team, is that despite all the meta things they can play, he can still flex over. We saw the double support come out quite a lot in that earlier phase, and they used that to support the Hanzo
Yeah.
on Battlefield of Eternity, so much so that it warranted Uther bans at times against them. So
They're an iceberg.
they are an
hero
entity of their
pools.
own.
There's only a little bit that's showing on the surface, but they can play a whole lot more.